She's not breathing. Move, move! The airport gate shattered into chaos as paramedics rushed toward gate 43. People backed away, gasping. Phones came up. A little girl in a pink dress lay limp on the ground, her arm barely draped over. The paw of a large German shepherd. The dog wasn't barking, wasn't growling. Gert just stared, frozen, unmoving, at the girl's tear-streaked face. Seconds earlier, she'd been screaming. Not words, just pain. Then she collapsed. And then, the canine dog did something no one could understand. It didn't panic. It didn't whine. It reached into the girl's tiny backpack with its nose, pulled out something wrapped in red cloth, and sat on it, refused to move. A TSA officer tried to touch it. The dog snarled, a low guttural warning that silenced the crowd. Its ears were up, alert, not to protect the girl, to protect whatever was in that cloth. "Step back," one of the medics ordered. "We can't reach her." The handler wasn't. There. That's what made this all wrong. The dog wore a vest, the patch faded. Retired K9, do not separate. A retired K9 with a child? In an airport? Alone? A woman in the crowd whispered, "Why is it guarding her backpack?" But it wasn't. The dog wasn't guarding the bag. It was guarding what was inside it. Seconds passed like thunder. The paramedics edged forward again, but the K9 growled louder. This time, hackles rising. Not a protective growl, a warning, and then beep, beep, beep. The airport's internal threat system lit up red. Security breach detected. Gate 43A cold voice came through the overhead system. All terminals hold position, lockdown commencing, and now people were running, crying. Security stormed the gate. Rifles up, orders shouted, but the dog didn't move. Its eyes, cloudy with age, stayed locked on the girl. Then a quiet voice cut through the storm of panic. "She told me not to open it," said a boy. No older than 10, standing to the side, trembling, holding the leash. Everyone turned. "What did you say?" an officer asked. The boy looked up. His eyes were filled with something too heavy for his age. She said, "If anything happens, if she falls, I'm supposed to let Bear guard the cloth, not me." "Bear?" The German shepherd didn't flinch. A second officer stepped forward, slowly this time. "Son, what's inside the red cloth?" The boy swallowed hard. She said it's the reason her daddy died, cut to black. 3 weeks earlier. No one paid much attention to the little girl with the huge backpack waiting outside Terminal B. She looked like any other traveler, except for 2 things. 1, she wasn't with a parent, just her older brother, barely taller than she was. 2, she had a dog that looked like it had seen war because it had. The German shepherd was scarred, limping slightly on its rear left leg, its eyes dulled but not unseeing. Its name, Bear, was stitched into a fading military tag attached to its vest. Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, pressing her cheek against Bear's neck. She didn't smile much, only when Bear licked her nose. "She's too quiet," Jacob had said once. She didn't used to be like that. After their father died, Lily stopped talking for a whole month. When she finally spoke again, it was to the dog, not her mother, not her brother, just Bear. Their father, Sergeant Micah Rains, had died on duty 8 months ago. The official report said improvised device during a K9 narcotics operation. Gone wrong. But Lily never believed that. She didn't know what improvised meant, but she knew her dad was careful. And Bear had survived. Bruised, shaken, but alive. Sometimes Lily would whisper things into Bear's ear that made Jacob feel cold. Like, "Daddy told me secrets, said I can only tell them when the stars fall." Or, "Bear knows who hurt him. That's why he growls at some uniforms." Jacob had once joked about it, until Bear lunged at a visiting officer who wore the same patch as their dad's unit. Now Jacob didn't joke anymore. Their mom was gone now too. Not dead, but gone in the way adults go when grief breaks something in their minds. So Jacob and Lily were being sent to live with an aunt in Oregon. Neither child had met her. And yet, Lily clutched her bag with the red cloth inside it, like it held her father's soul. "Promise me you won't let them touch it," she whispered to Jacob, "if something happens." He didn't know what she meant, just nodded. Then she whispered something to Bear. The dog blinked slowly, as if understanding, and for the first time in days Lily looked scared, not about leaving, not about flying, but about what might happen at the airport. By the time they reached airport security, the line stretched into a maze of silent tension. Jacob held the leash tightly, but Bear didn't need guiding. The dog walked slow and steady beside Lily, his head swiveling with every uniformed figure in sight. "Why is everyone staring at us?" Jacob muttered. Bear's fur bristled, not because of the people, but because of a particular guard at the scanner station. He wore sunglasses indoors, thick arms crossed over a chest, riddled with tattoos hidden under his TSA shirt. His name tag read Morrow. He didn't smile when he waved them through. As they stepped forward, Lily clutched her backpack harder. The red cloth inside poked at the zipper. "Ma'am," said Morrow, voice low and bored, "put your bag on the belt." Lily didn't move. "She's just a kid," Jacob said, trying to lift it off her shoulders. That's when Bear snarled. Everyone flinched. Morrow didn't. He just looked down at Bear like he was expecting it. "You got papers for that animal?" Jacob blinked. "He's registered. Doesn't look like it. He's retired military. He's not scanning in the system." The scanner buzzed once, then twice. Something beeped inside Lily's bag. "Kid," Morrow said slowly, "you mind telling me what you're carrying?" Lily opened her mouth, then closed it. Her eyes dropped to Bear, then to the floor. Jacob stepped forward. "It's private." "Nothing's private at security, son." He motioned for another officer. Bear stepped between them. "You better back your dog off." Bear didn't move. More officers gathered, curious eyes turned toward them, and then beep, 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 another alert. Bag flagged. Internal scan reading. Organic residue. Class C indicator. Whatever that meant, it made the TSA flinch. "Ma'am, we're going to need to open your bag." "No," Lily whispered. "You'll hurt it." "What's it?" Morrow asked. Lily didn't answer, but Bear did. The dog lunged, not to bite, but to block. He pushed Lily back with his body and stood over her like a living wall. Chaos rippled. Security reached for tasers, and Jacob screamed, "Stop!" Everyone froze. He reached slowly for the backpack. "I'll open it." Bear didn't growl this time, but his eyes followed every inch of Jacob's hand. Jacob unzipped the bag and saw it. Wrapped in the red cloth was a framed photo of their father. And behind it, a flash drive, small, silver, unlabeled. No one noticed it fall deeper into the bag's lining, but Bear did. He watched Jacob's face shift. Jacob looked at the photo, then at Lily, then at Bear, and suddenly everything clicked. Wrongly. "Is this what you didn't want anyone to see?" Lily looked at her brother with tear-glossed eyes. Then she whispered, "Daddy said it was a dead man's kill switch." That word, kill switch, should have meant nothing. But Morrow stiffened, and Bear turned to him and let out a low, warlike growl. Jacob zipped the bag closed fast. "No problem here," he said, trying to smile. "Just a family photo, dog's protective, sorry." The officers hesitated. Morrow stared for a long second, then waved them through. But as they passed, he muttered under his breath, just loud enough for Bear to hear, "Too bad your handler ain't alive to protect your secrets, mutt." Bear stopped. He turned back to look at Morrow, and Jacob saw something terrifying in the dog's eyes. Recognition. The flight gate was quiet. They sat near gate 43. 2 hours before boarding, Lily leaned against Bear. Jacob kept glancing at the bag. "You need to tell me the truth," he whispered. Lily looked up slowly. "You knew something would happen here, didn't you?" Lily nodded. "I saw it in my dreams. That's not how the world works, but it's how Daddy warned me." Jacob laughed bitterly. "Daddy's dead, Lily. He didn't tell you. He's not dead because of the bomb. He's dead because he knew something, and now Bear has it." Jacob blinked. She leaned close. "That flash drive isn't just a file. It's a voice. Bear's collar recorded it before Daddy died. You're saying he recorded a confession about someone on the inside?" Jacob's throat tightened. "He made Bear wear the collar even after he was wounded. He said, 'Dogs don't forget, and neither should you.'" Bear nudged the backpack. Jacob grabbed it. He fished deeper than before, reaching beneath the lining, and there it was, a hidden slit in the cloth, a slot barely wide enough to hold the drive. His fingers trembled as he slid it out, a sticker on the back. MK5. Eyes only. Jacob looked up. Across the terminal, Morrow stood. Watching them. He was supposed to be at security. Why was he here? Bear's body stiffened. Lily whispered, "He's the one. He's the man. Daddy warned us about." Jacob stared. "How do you—" "Because Bear bit him once when we went to the funeral." And now Morrow was walking toward them. Slow. Intentional. Jacob whispered, "Go to the bathroom. Take the flash drive. Hide it." "I'm not leaving, Bear. You don't have to. He'll go with you." Bear stood instantly as if he understood. But before Lily could get up, Morrow pulled his badge. "Kid," he said, "you left something at security." Jacob stood in front of Lily. Bear began to growl again. Lily reached into her backpack and, without anyone seeing, slipped the flash drive into Bear's collar pouch. Bear didn't blink. "Come with me," Morrow said. Then someone shouted behind. Them. "Wait, he's not with TSA anymore." A woman ran through the gate checkpoint, drenched in sweat, holding real security credentials. "He's impersonating an officer. That's Mick Morrow, fired last year after internal investigations." Too late, Morrow lunged, and Bear exploded forward. The German shepherd slammed into him so fast it looked like a missile with fur. The crowd screamed. Morrow hit the ground hard, and under his vest, a gun fell out. The crowd gasped, but Bear didn't. "Stop." He pinned Morrow down and barked once, deep and sharp. Not out of anger, out of confirmation. This was the man, the one who betrayed his handler. The airport broke into chaos. Security scrambled. Passengers screamed. A dozen cell phones lit up, recording everything. Bear standing on top of Morrow like a living statue of vengeance. But Lily didn't scream. She just whispered, "He remembered." Real TSA agents swarmed the scene. One officer grabbed Bear's leash, trying to pull him off, but the dog wouldn't budge until Jacob knelt down beside him. "It's okay now, buddy," he said, barely able to breathe. "You did it. You found him." Bear stepped off, slow and controlled. His eyes never left Morrow's face. Blood trickled from Morrow's lip as he glared upward. "You think this changes anything?" he growled. One of the real TSA supervisors, a woman named Carla Ruiz, yanked his fake badge and gun, eyes widening. "This man is wanted for internal corruption and theft of classified materials." Jacob couldn't stop shaking. Ruiz turned to him. "How did you know?" He looked at Bear. "I didn't." But he did. Morrow was dragged away in handcuffs. Cameras flashed. Officers saluted Bear. A little boy clapped from across the gate, calling him a hero dog. The tension dissolved. Applause scattered through the terminal like confetti. For a moment it felt like something had finally gone right. The next hour passed in a strange dream. Jacob and Lily were questioned, praised, even offered free upgrades. Ruiz took their statements and called the Department of Defense to report Bear's actions. "This K9," she said, eyes scanning his records, "has a history most agents dream of. 10 years of service, 3 confirmed bomb saves, and now this." She patted Bear's head. "You've still got fight in you, old boy." Lily sat silently on the bench, hugging her knees. Bear leaned against her legs. Jacob stepped aside to speak with Ruiz privately. "Look, there's something else," he whispered. "I think Bear's collar has a file in it, some kind of encrypted drive my dad left behind." Ruiz narrowed her eyes. "What kind of file?" "I don't know, but it might explain why Morrow came after us." She leaned in closer. "Then we need to process it securely. I can contact a DoD liaison. This could tie into something bigger." "Okay," Jacob nodded. "Can I stay with Bear while you do it?" She gave a soft smile. "Of course. You've all been through enough." It felt like peace, like the nightmare was finally over. Their flight was delayed, but no one cared. A gentle buzz hung in the air. Agents brought Bear a bottle of water. Someone even gave Lily a warm pretzel. The gate screen dinged overhead. "Flight 218 to Denver, now boarding." Jacob turned to Lily. "Ready to finally go home?" She nodded softly. Bear stood tall. Ruiz returned with 2 uniformed men. "We'll handle the drive from here. We'll have results within the day." Jacob hesitated. Are they from defense? They're cleared. I've worked with them before. Bear's eyes flicked toward the two men. Then something changed, a flicker of tension in the air. His tail dropped. Ears shifted back. Jacob felt it too. One of the men leaned down and reached for Bear's collar. Easy, buddy. Let's get that. Little drive, okay? Bear stepped back, hackles rising. The man froze. Lily stood up. He doesn't like them. Ruiz raised an eyebrow. He's just on edge. No, Jacob said. He's never stepped back from anyone, not unless... Then he looked closer. One of the men had a faint scar near his temple. Jacob had seen that face before. On the wall in his father's old basement, labeled, "Do not engage," level red. This wasn't over. They weren't here to help. They were here to erase the evidence. Jacob's stomach dropped. It wasn't paranoia, it was instinct, trained into him by years of watching his father read people like open books. These men weren't defense, they were cleaners. Lily, he said, voice quiet, trembling under his breath. Get Bear slowly. She didn't ask questions. Just placed her tiny hand on Bear's neck and began to move. Too late. One of the men reached for his belt. Subtle. But Bear caught it. The growl that came from him wasn't a warning. It was a death promise. Jacob shoved Lily behind a pillar and lunged forward, knocking the man's arm just as he drew something. Jacob didn't see what it was. A pen? No. A syringe. The second man reached for his radio. Bear lunged again. Screams erupted from gate 218. Passengers scattered. TSA moved in, but it was already a blur of chaos. Ruiz stood frozen, torn. Jacob wrestled the second man to the ground as Bear dragged the other away by the arm, shredding fabric and flesh. The syringe skittered across the floor. Jacob grabbed it and held it up. No label, just a murky yellow fluid. Poison? Sedative? It didn't matter. They were going to kill Bear, Jacob gasped, and probably us. Ruiz barked into her radio. Code black, security breach at gate 218, full lockdown. I repeat, full lockdown. Everything dissolved into sirens. Bear stood still, blood on his muzzle, not panting, not blinking, just waiting for the next attack. Ruiz looked at Jacob like she'd been punched in the gut. Why didn't you tell me it was that level? Because I didn't know, okay. My dad died before he could explain. She glanced at Lily. The child stood pale and silent, one hand still gripping Bear's thick fur. Ruiz lowered her voice. You're not safe here. These men aren't acting alone. Jacob stared at the syringe in his hand. What if they already found the file? What if this was just a cleanup job? They didn't, Ruiz replied, because you never took off that collar, did you? He looked at Bear. The old K9 stood like a mountain, worn, scarred, but still standing, still guarding. But Jacob saw it now. His leg trembled slightly. His chest heaved harder than it used to, and there was blood on his left paw, not from the attackers. Bear's. Hurt, Lily whispered. Jacob knelt beside him, inspecting the wound. A gash on his pad. Not life-threatening, but Bear barely flinched. He'd walked through fire without complaint, just like his father used to. For the first time in years, Jacob felt it, the helplessness. He could fight. He could run. But they were shadows chasing shadows. No matter how far they flew, the threat would follow. Because this wasn't about them anymore. It was about a secret his father died protecting. A secret still hidden in a collar no one had been able to crack. Until now. Jacob looked up, eyes burning. We need to finish what he started. Ruiz nodded. Slowly. There's a secure location, 2 terminals down, no cameras, no crowd. We can get to it if you trust me. Jacob's voice cracked. I don't trust anyone anymore. He stood. Lily gripped his hand tight. Bear pressed against his leg. They weren't just passengers anymore. They were fugitives with a file no one wanted found, and the only one who could still lead them through the fire was a bleeding, aging K9 dog who hadn't stopped fighting. Not. Even when the world turned on him. They moved fast. Terminal C was nearly empty. Most passengers had been rerouted due to the earlier incident. The place felt like a ghost wing of the airport. Sterile white tiles, long corridors, flickering overhead. Lights. Somewhere a gate announcement played on loop, but no one listened. Jacob, Lily, Bear, and Ruiz moved through a maintenance door marked Authorized Personnel Only, down a flight of stairs, through a narrow service hallway until they reached a heavy key-coded door. Ruiz entered a 6-digit code. The lock clunked open. Inside, an old TSA security substation, long decommissioned. Dust on the desk. Old radio equipment, no windows. Best I can do, Ruiz said, bolting the door behind them. No cameras, no eyes. Jacob nodded and dropped to his knees beside Bear. He gently unlatched the titanium collar. The encrypted drive was still embedded on the underside. Ruiz placed her tablet on the desk, connected a secure dongle, and slotted the drive into it. The screen blinked. Encrypted. Level Omega Protocol. Jacob's chest tightened. Ruiz paused. There's only one reason your dad would have used this encryption. You sure you want to see this? He met her eyes. I need to. She nodded. Then brace yourself. She ran a decryption loop, military-grade software. The room was silent except for the fan inside the tablet spinning faster and faster. Bear laid his head on Lily's lap, panting softly. Blood still oozed from his paw. She stroked him like a child would an old stuffed toy, gently, desperately. The screen flashed once, then filled with video. Jacob's breath caught in his throat. It was a recording from inside a military interrogation room. The timestamp read, March 3rd, 2015. The man on screen, his father, Agent Michael Shaw, and across the table, tied down, unconscious, was Samuel Morrow. What is this? Ruiz whispered. Jacob couldn't look away. The footage played. Begin video. Michael sat in uniform, jaw tense. The camera's audio clicked on. This is Agent Shaw. Internal report 993R. Private backup copy. For eyes only. He stared at Morrow, who stirred slightly in the chair, drugged but alive. This man is not who he claims to be. He has ties to a covert splinter group embedded in Homeland Security. They've been transferring weapon prototypes, biochemical data, to third parties, overseas under false clearance codes. Shaw leaned forward, and they've compromised K9 units to do it. He looked straight into the camera. They're embedding microdrives in retired K9 collars, smuggling them through civilian routes, using unsuspecting handlers as mules. Jacob's blood ran cold. His father's voice hardened. And I just found out I was one of them. He stood up and walked behind Morrow. I can't trust anyone, not even my unit. I've hidden this video and evidence in a secured collar, Bear's collar. If you're watching this, it means I'm dead. A pause. Then, voice cracking. Protect my son. Protect the girl. And if Bear's still alive, tell him I'm sorry for what I made him carry. End video. The room fell into silence. Jacob couldn't move. Bear whimpered, barely audible, but it broke the dam. He knelt beside him, arms around his thick neck, face buried in fur. My dad used you, he whispered, voice shattered. He used you to carry the truth. Bear licked the edge of his jaw. Ruiz sat down hard. No one ever caught this. The entire internal investigation was buried. Your dad was marked as paranoid. They said he died in an accident. No, Jacoby said. He was silenced. Ruiz checked the file's metadata. This isn't just enough to blow the doors open. It names names. It lists locations. If this gets out, it could destroy half the shadow infrastructure inside Homeland. And that's why they're still after us, Jacob murmured. Not just to shut us up, but to erase him. He looked at Bear. They'd carried his father's sins and his last hope. You think it's over? Ruiz said. No, Jacob replied. Now it starts. Suddenly, Bear let out a low, growling cough. Blood dark red pooled from his mouth. Jacob froze. Bear! Lily screamed. He's bleeding! Jacob laid him down, heart pounding. Ruiz rushed over. He's crashing. Internal. Bleeding. Maybe from the fight. No, 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 stay with me. Jacob pressed his hands over Bear's chest, useless. Bear looked up at him, eyes clear, one last time, and gave a weak wag of his tail. Then, stillness, a silence that didn't feel like peace. It felt like loss, real and raw. Lily collapsed into Jacob's arms, and all he could do was hold her and whisper, He saved us. The news broke within 48 hours. Encrypted evidence from a fallen canine handler had reached investigative journalists through anonymous sources. A firestorm lit up every major channel. Allegations of smuggling, black-budget bioweapons, and compromised K9 units hit with a fury no one was prepared for. But Jacob and Lily weren't watching. The headlines. They stood alone at a private burial site deep in the woods of New Hampshire, where federal eyes wouldn't look. Bear had been cremated with full military honors, but no fanfare, no press, just quiet, just them. Jacob placed the urn in the ground and pressed a gloved hand to the earth. He didn't speak. Lily laid her small drawing on top, childlike scrawls of a K9 with wings, standing beside a little girl and a tall man. She kissed her fingertips, then touched the urn. Bye. Bear? As they turned to leave, Jacob's phone buzzed. Unknown number, he almost didn't answer, but something in his gut told him to. He picked up, a voice crackled through. Male, calm, cold. You should have left the dog to die. Jacob froze. The line clicked off, no trace, no number, just static. He looked around, the trees were still, but something in the air shifted, like a breath being held. He looked down at Lily. She clung to his hand. We're not safe yet, are we? She asked softly. Didn't answer, just pulled her close. But in his other hand, he gripped the replacement collar Bear never got to wear. Inside it, another drive, one not mentioned in his father's video. Jacob stared at it, and for the first time, he wondered, what else did Bear know that no one ever found? Do you think Bear was carrying more than just the truth? Was he guarding something far darker? Or someone? They didn't go back to New York. Too many eyes, too many cameras, too many ghosts. Instead, Jacob and Lily disappeared into the quiet edges of the country. Small towns, rented cabins, no credit cards, no digital footprint. They moved through the world like shadows that had once belonged to someone else. But grief didn't hide. It followed. Bears. Absence was louder than any noise. Jacob found himself listening for the sound of claws on tile floors, for the subtle grunt Bear used to give before lying down, for the rhythmic breathing beside him when nightmares clawed at his sleep. They never came. Instead, he had Lily, and Lily had silence. She hadn't cried since the funeral. Not one tear. She talked little, slept little, ate enough to survive. But she carried Bear's stuffed toy everywhere, the faded K9 plush she once gave him on the airport bench before all hell broke loose. One night, Jacob found her outside the cabin porch, sitting alone in the cold. Couldn't sleep, he asked. She shook her head. He wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and sat down beside her. The stars were brutal that night, clear and merciless. He was more than a dog, she said suddenly. He felt things, he knew things. Jacob nodded. I think he knew he was going to die. Jacob swallowed hard. He made a choice. Yeah. She looked down. To save me, not himself. Silence. Then her voice cracked. I miss him so much, Jacob. It's like my chest can't breathe sometimes. Jacob didn't know what to say, so he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the replacement collar, the one Bear never wore. She looked at it. You kept it? He nodded. There's something inside. Another drive. I haven't opened it. Why not? Because part of me thinks whatever it holds might ruin what Bear died for. She turned to him. Or finish what he started. He looked into her eyes, and in them he didn't see a child anymore. He saw someone forged by truth, by pain, by sacrifice. He handed her the collar. You decide. She took it carefully, and for the first time in days she smiled. The next morning, Ruiz found them. She'd gone dark for weeks after leaking the files, knew she was being hunted, monitored, but she never gave up. She drove an unmarked car up a dirt path to their cabin. When she stepped out, Jacob barely recognized her, tired, thinner, eyes sharp with purpose. I have contacts now, she said. Whistleblowers, allies, what your dad uncovered. It's just the tip. Jacob waited. Ruiz looked at Lily, who held the collar against her chest like it was sacred. I think that drive has the rest. Jacob tilted his head. How do you know? Ruiz smirked. because the people who were hunting you, they stopped, vanished, like they're waiting. For what? For silence, for you to disappear, or for that last piece to stay buried. Lily stepped forward. She placed the collar in Ruiz's hand. Then we give them what they don't expect. They didn't hand it to the government. Not this time. They built their own chain of truth. Through independent outlets, encrypted servers, dead drops. They split the data into dozens of pieces, like Bear had done. By the time the full story hit the surface, the ones responsible had already run out of places to hide. Bear's legacy wasn't a war. It was a reckoning. Years later, Lily stood at another airport gate, but this time she wasn't the girl with a stuffed dog and trembling hands. She wore a junior cadet uniform, and, beside her, a young German shepherd, golden brown, bright-eyed, attentive. She leaned down and scratched his ears. "Ready, Max?" he barked softly. A mother with 2 children looked over. "Is he a service dog?" Lily smiled. "He's more than that." Jacob stood nearby, older now, wearier but proud. Lily walked toward the security checkpoint, and just as they passed through, Max suddenly stopped. He sniffed, barked once. Lily froze. Jacob's eyes widened. Security turned. Max growled toward a duffel bag a few feet away. No one claimed it. Agents closed in inside. Detonation triggers. Illegal. Max sat proudly, tail wagging, and the terminal burst into stunned applause. But Lily didn't smile for the cameras. She just looked up. "And," whispered so softly Jacob barely heard it, "you'd be proud of him, Bear." Silent reflection. Later that night, Jacob sat by the fire, watching Lily and Max curled up together, and in the flicker of flame, he could almost see Bear's silhouette. Watching. From the shadows, still guarding, still loyal, still be there.